Okay, welcome back. Are you all there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll be just showing the anatomy a little bit, and then again the same sequence. Then I'll be talking about the causes of hip pain, anterior hip pain, lateral hip pain, medial hip pain, posterior hip pain, and referred pain as well. And after that, we'll be talking about the evaluation. So let us start with the muscles. So hip flexor muscles, very important. So what is this muscle? Sartorius, very superficial, and you remember the pes anserine tendon. So pes anserine, the bursa. So pes anserine is three tendon: the sartorius, the gracilis, and semitendinosus. These three together is attached to the upper medial part of the tibia. So in the hip, in the knee class we discussed last Sunday. So this is your sartorius. Let us remove the sartorius. Then again, this is very important muscles. One of the very important muscle of the quadriceps muscles. You remember the four quadriceps muscles. The rectus femoris, then is vastus. Just below it is your vastus intermedius, and then is your vastus medialis and lateralis. And then this is your the tensor fasciolata. The tensor fasciolata is getting attached with the iliotibial band. You can remember. So this is your tensor fasciolata, and if you are reviewing that, so our the abductor and the extensor muscles are exposed. So this is your gluteus maximus. So gluteus maximus, part of it is also attached in the tensor fasciolata. So gluteus maximus, then is your gluteus medius, then is your gluteus minimus. So these are hip abductor and extensor. So now there are few other hip abductor and the external rotator. One of the very important is your piriformis. And if we are, if we are placing the nerve, you see how the nerves are going there. So you see the sciatic nerve is just anterior to the piriformis muscle. And that is the reason why the piriformis muscle is so important. Piriformis muscle, myofascial pain, it's a very broad muscle, big muscle under the cover of the gluteus muscles. And origin of this is the lateral border of the sacrum, particularly S23, and insertion is at the greater trochanter. So what is the function of this muscle? This muscle, when it's contracted, the hip is externally rotated and abducted. So this muscle, if it is in spasm, this sciatic nerve is getting compressed, and the patient might be having the symptoms of sciatica. Pain might be going up to the toes. So apart from that, so we are having the other extensor muscle. So an external rotator muscle. So gamellae superior, gamellae inferior, and in between is your obturator internus. And this is your rectus, this is your quadratus femoris. So these are all external rotator. And if we are coming medially, we are having and among the flexor we are having the iliopsoas. So this is your iliacus and this is your psoas. So they are very strong hip flexors, and now the adductors and internal rotators. So this is your pectineus. If you are viewing the pectineus, then is the other adductors are exposed. So this is your obturator externus. Obturator internus, you have seen it from the posteriorly. This was your obturator internus, and this is your obturator externus. And we are having this pectineus. Then is the adductor brevis, adductor longus, and adductor magnus. So these are the adductor muscles. These are the adductor as well as the internal rotator. So these are the muscles around the hip joint, and there are certain bursas. If you are reviewing this, there is one very important bursa. So this is one important bursa which can cause the anterior hip pain. There is another very important bursa here, that is your trochanteric bursa. Again, that is one of the very important cause of the lateral hip pain. And there is important bursa here, which is your gluteus medius bursa, which is for the posterior or posterolateral hip pain. So these are the very important bursas. Apart from that, there is the ischial bursa. If you are removing these muscles, let me remove all the muscles. So you can see the bursas. So this is again very important bursa. So the ischiogluteal bursa, that is again one very important cause of the pain around the hip pain. So keeping this in our mind, let us go into the PowerPoint. Okay, so first was we are talking about the hip flexors. So hip flexors, very strong is your iliopsoas muscle. Apart from that, the rectus femoris and sartorius are also very important hip flexors. Some others are also partly help in the hip flexions, and you have to remember the branches are mostly from the femoral nerve. So L1 to L3, partly from the L4 as well, mostly by the L2. As you already mentioned, the hip flexor means L2, but ranges from the L1 to L3. And the four major muscles, iliopsoas, the rectus femoris, sartorius. Few other muscles are also important for the hip flexors. So next is your hip extensors. Hip extensors are the glutei muscles. Glutei muscles are the innervation is from the L4, L5, and hamstrings muscles. Hamstring muscles, remember the hamstring muscles? The hamstring muscles are the semimembranosus, semitendinosus, and the biceps femoris. So they are the hamstring muscles. So hamstring muscles are supplied by the S1, glutei muscles are supplied by the L4 and L5. So they are the important hip extensors. Then comes your hip abductors. Hip abductors or extensors are almost similar. That means mostly the gluteus muscles. Apart from that, the tensor fasciculata. Tensor fasciculata is very important hip abductor. And piriformis is also a little bit of hip abductor. Piriformis main function is your external rotator, but it is also a little bit of hip abductor. So hip abductor, all the glutei muscles, tensor fasciculata, and the piriformis. And again, nerve supply is similar. That means it is a glutei muscles is supplied by the L4 and L4 and L5, superior and the inferior gluteal nerve, and is your branches from the S1. So these are for the hip abductors. And then you are having the hip adductors. The hip adductor muscles, the pectineus, adductor brevis, adductor longus, adductor magnus, and also gracilis. So they are the hip adductors. Hip adductors is again mostly nerve, and again root value is like L1 to L4. So this is your hip abductors. So let me again repeat. So hip flexors, again the muscles are iliopsoas, rectus, sartorius, and partly by other muscles, and supply is from L1 to L3. Then comes is your hip extensor, the hamstring muscles, and the gluteus muscles. So their supply is by the L4, 5, and S1. Then comes your hip abductors. Hip abductors, apart from the gluteal muscles, we are having the tensor fasciculata and the piriformis. And again, supply is L4, L5, and S1. And then comes is your hip adductors. Here is your pectineus, then your adductor longus, adductor brevis, adductor magnus. So now the hip external rotator, again as I told, piriformis is one, but apart from that, piriformis, we are having the gemellus superior, gemellus inferior, the obturator externus, and the quadratus femoris. So these all are the hip external rotator, which is also a little bit of by the other muscles are also supplying a little bit. Hip internal rotators are mostly the hip adductors or the hip internal rotators as well. So now hip joint innervation, again very important. So hip joint is innervated by three important nerves. Many times when you talk about the when you're talking about the knee innervation, and we are going to update then the articular branches of the knee, the genicular nerves. So we know that there are three major nerves are going around. So the saphenous, the tibial, and the peroneal nerve. So these are supplying the branches comes from this, which is supplying the knee joint. So here also the heel joint, you have to remember one very important rule, that any nerves which is going around the joint, they leave some articular branches. So here the three major nerves goes around the hip joint. Is your anteriorly is your the femoral nerve, medially you are having the opertor nerve, and posteriorly we are having the sciatic nerve. So all of these nerves leaves articular branches. Anteriorly we are supply coming from the your femoral nerve, medially supply coming from the opertor nerve, and posteriorly the fibers comes from the the sciatic nerve. And this is again one of the very important picture, particularly for the pain physicians, that when we are going to do the ablation radiofrequency or the cryoablation of the hip pain, and we place the needle like this to ablate the articular branches coming from the femoral nerve, articular branches coming from here. You are placing over the the incision of the acetabulum over the ischial bone. Here we are putting over the this area just below and medial to the anterocephalic spine. So this is a very important area landmark for ablating this the articular branches. And sciatic nerve normally we do not target because it is very close, and even though it is supplying part of the hip joint, still we do not target the sciatic nerve, the articular branches of the sciatic nerve. We only target the articular branches of the femoral nerve and articular branches of the operator nerve. Steps of the clinical evaluation are similar. I'm not going to repeat it. So causes of the hip pain. So if you're thinking about the structures, so we always try to remember the two important areas of the diagnosis of any particular pathology, any particular painful conditions. One is which structure is responsible for the pain, and second is which pathological process is causing the pain. So the structures, all these structures can cause pain, and all these pathologies can cause the pain. And apart from that, the red flag is almost the similar. If there is any history of trauma which may cause the fracture, if there is any the swelling, redness indicating the infection, so the fracture, the infection, the major neurodeficits, the compartment syndrome. So these are the very important red flags. Apart from that, the neurodeficits, particularly the motor deficit, these are the red flags. And definitely the bladder bowel disturbances if it is associated. So these are the list of the red flag, and if the red flag is there, again we have to have the joint team with an orthopedic surgeon or sometimes spine surgeon. Now we will be elaborating the hip pain one by one, the common causes, and we'll be discussing about the anterior hip pain. Anterior hip pain, osteoarthritis of the hip is very important. The acetabular-labral tear. Again, labral tear means it is the cartilaginous part, cartilaginous rim, which is called the labrum. And many times the labral tear, cannot be diagnosed by your X-rays. So I can remember the one of the there is some minor trauma. The patient presented with the hip pain. Hip pain means the buttock pain and the hip pain, and the anterior pain also a little bit. And ultimately the X-ray was done. There was no fracture sign. So patient was having the confusion. What is the cause of the pain? Because X-ray is not enough in majority of the situations. Ultimately we did the ultrasonography, and we could identify the labral tear by ultrasonography itself. Then we sent this patient for the MRI, and finally diagnosis was made. So acetabular-labral tear is one of the important cause, particularly after the trauma. Even if you don't see any fracture, still labral tear is an important cause of the pain. Then is the impingement, hip impingement. Hip impingement means the mostly it's like the cup and a ball and circuit. So if the ball is deformed, there are many conditions where the hip is not in a ball-like structure. It is deformed. It is the flattened or irregularities, or if the cup is not normal, so there is an impingement. So the hip impingement can cause the restriction of the movement, range of the movement, as well as there will be the movement will be painful. Then comes your snapping hip. Snapping hip, internal, intra-articular. So the snapping hip are basically the intra-articular. It is snapping hip means when there is a certain movement of the hip, then there will be some snapping sound and some pain. This is your snapping hip. So the snapping hip can be intra-articular, extra-articular. Intra-articular means there is an intra-articular pathology, like there is some lateral, the lateral tear, some fractures. So these are the causes of the intra-articular snapping hip syndrome. And extra-articular can be divided into internal snapping hip and external snapping hip. Internal snapping hip means mostly the hip adductors, like the iliopsoas muscles. When the hip is flexed and extended, then when this tendinous part of these muscles are actually gliding over the bone, so it might be having some obstruction, and the patient might be having the snapping sound and the pain. So this is your internal snapping hip, and the external snapping hip is basically the tensor fascia lata and the iliotibial band. The flexion and extensions, they are slipping over the trochanter, greater trochanter, and that time again there might be, if there is any tendinopathies, or if there is some the other kinds of osteophytes or some other things, when it will be slipping over the greater trochanter, there will be snapping sounds and there will be pain. So the snapping hip is a condition which are mostly the two types. Then again, intra-articular, extra-articular, and extra-articular is internal, means iliotibial, and external means which is obstructing over the greater trochanter, mostly the tensor fascia lata and iliotibial band. So the snapping hip syndrome is also one of the important cause. The external snapping hip causes the lateral hip pain, and internal snapping hip or the intra-articular snapping hip causes the anterior hip pain. Then is your stress fracture, osteonecrosis or avascular necrosis, the other kind of the bursitis, and sometimes, as you already mentioned, the L1 or L2 radicular pain, radiculopathy can causes the pain, as well as some of the nerve entrapment, like your femoral. The genitofemoral is the one of the very important, as I already mentioned during the leg pain. The femoral obturator is less common, and the lateral cutaneous. Lateral cutaneous mostly causes the lateral hip pain. So this is your anterior hip pain. Then your lateral hip pain, the tendinopathies, particularly all these, the tendons, particularly the gluteus minimus and the medius, they are getting attached over the greater trochanter, and the tendinopathies of these muscles and the associated bursitis is the most important cause of the lateral hip pain. Apart from that, trochanteric bursitis, the bursa under the gluteus medius, that bursitis of that. Iliotibial band syndrome. Iliotibial band syndrome causes the lateral thigh pain, but it can also cause the lateral hip pain as well. And some of the entrapment neuropathy, they are the causes of the lateral hip pain. Then comes the posterior hip pain. The posterior hip pain is the most common cause of the posterior hip pain is your effort pain. So if you are talking about the whole of the hip pain, anterior, medial, lateral, posterior, so all together, the most common hip pain is not the articular hip pathology. It is the effort pain coming from above, coming from which kind of extra-articular cause can cause the hip pain. The very important is your facet joint pain, sacroiliac joint pain, the paraspinal muscles pain, the myofascial pain of those muscles, and even the buttock muscles. So all this pain can cause the effort pain around the hip. So this is the commonest cause you have to remember. Apart from that, there are many other. One of the very important, as we already mentioned, is the piriformis syndrome. Piriformis syndrome is basically involving the piriformis, the muscle. There is a myofascial pain, and spasm of this muscle causes the entrapment neuropathy of the sciatic nerve. So the patient will be having pain around here, as well as the patient will be having the radiating pain because of the sciatic nerve entrapment. So there are many other causes of the hip pain, posterior hip pain. The medial hip pain and the anterior hip pain is mostly almost the similar causes, like the internal snapping hip, the bursitis. So these are your medial hip pain. Apart from that, the tendinopathies, particularly the adductor tendinopathies, are the important causes of the medial hip pain as well. So now in examinations part, evaluation part, we are having the history, the general history, the specific history. The specific history, you should be asking for whether the patient is having the snapping sounds of the sensations, if there is any weakness, if there is any limping, the shortening of the legs. Here the special history should be asking. Inspection. You have to expose the whole of the hip joint, and you should be inspecting it from the anteriorly, from the laterally, from the posteriorly. and we have to look for the any the ecchymosis, any injury, any operation shine, any muscle wasting. So all these things would be inspected. Then palpation. Palpation again, the similar principle. Everywhere we are palpating in the musculoskeletal pain. That means we are palpating the muscles, bulk of the muscles for myofascial pain. Then is the insertion or origin of the muscles to assess the enthesiopathies. That means tendon where it is inserted, along with that tendinopathies. Then we are palpating the joint line, the capsules, the articular surface. If you can, in the hip we cannot palpate the articular surface. In the knee you can palpate the articular surface. So they are the areas we need to, and also the different ligaments you have to palpate. So they are the areas of the palpation. So it is same for here as well. Apart from that, in the palpation, if you found any lump, so you have to palpate that lump, any swelling. If you have the assess for the temperature, important to assess the signs of the infections. So they are the areas for the palpation. Then is your range of movement. So range of movement, hip joint, the flexion and extension. Extension is done by the in the prone position. Then is your adduction and abduction. Then is your internal rotation and external rotation. Internal rotation, external rotation. Here you are doing in the prone position, but it can be also done in the supine position. Then is your on the very important test is your Trendelenburg test or Trendelenburg gait as well. So what happens again? I discussed in other classes, but again, those who are new for them, let me discuss a little bit about the Trendelenburg test or Trendelenburg gait. So what happens? Suppose when you are lifting the gait, lifting the the hip like lifting the leg like this. So if we are, suppose this person is normal. So if this person is normal, and if we are lifting this leg, so the pelvis, if you are looking about the this side pelvis and this side pelvis, they are the horizontal line. Why this is the horizontal line? If this leg is lifted up from the ground, then this side should be falling, isn't it? This side should be falling, but this side of the pelvis is not falling. Why? Because the abductor muscles of this side will be contracting and will be lifting this pelvis of the other side. That means when we are lifting this side, the pelvis is kept in a horizontal by the other side, the contralateral side, abductors of the hip. So now, if these abductors are weak, what will happen? If we are lifting the normal leg, and if we are standing on the affected leg, then this sided hip will be falling down. So this is your Trendelenburg test. And patient, if it is walking, what will happen? As soon as patient is lifting the normal leg, patient is putting weight in the abnormal leg, the hip will be falling down towards the normal side. And again, when we are putting the leg on this side, normal side, hip will be in the horizontal position. The pelvis will be in the horizontal position. This is your Trendelenburg gait. So Trendelenburg gait and Trendelenburg test is very important for the hip abductor. And the nerve is very important. The most important hip abductor is the gluteus medius. Apart from that, the tensor fasciae lata and gluteus maximus also have some important role. So these are the hip abductors. So this hip abductor, if it is weak, is supplied by which nerve? It is by the gluteus muscles, supplied by the superior and the inferior gluteal nerves. That means L5 is most important, but L4 also a little bit. So if that means if there is Trendelenburg gait, which indicates that there is L5 radiculopathy. That means L5 nerve root, or any reason the L5 nerve root is weak, or the gluteus medius and the other abductor of the hip is weak. Then comes is your Patrick test. Patrick test is also called the Faber test. Patrick test we discussed in the when we discussed about the examination of the sacroiliac joint. So what we do here, it is flexion of the hip. Then is your flexion F, AB means abduction and external rotation. F, AB ear, flexion, abduction and the external rotation. So the Patrick test and Faber test is not specific for the sacroiliac joint. It is also important for the hip joint pathology as well. That means if there is an hip joint arthritis, inflammatory arthritis or spondyloarthritis, so this Patrick test will be positive. Then comes is your Fair test. Fair test can be done in your, in different way, in the lateral decubitus, the supine positions. So what is Fair? Fair means flexion, adduction and internal rotations. This is called FAIR or FADIT test. Flexion, adduction, AD means adduction and internal rotation. So FAIR or FADIT test are same. So what we are doing? We are doing flexion of the hip. Along with that, we are doing adduction and internal rotation. What will happen? The piriformis muscle will be stressed. So the piriformis muscles will be stressed, and that means if patient is having the pain posteriorly over the piriformis, that means it is a piriformis syndrome. But the same FADIT test or FAIR test can be done also for the impingement. That means if you are doing it in the flexion, adduction, and internal rotations, which will be restricted movements in the hip impingement. As I told you, hip impingement because of either in the ball or in the socket. If the shape of the ball or the socket is not normal because of any pathological lesions, so there might be impingement. The movement of the hip will be restricted. That also can be tested by the FAIR test or FADIT test. Then is your Waldman knee squeeze test. So what is done here? So putting a ball and we are asking the squeeze the ball. And what is important here is your adductor muscles. And if there is adductor tendinopathy, then then this will be your painful. So this is your Waldman knee squeeze test. Then come the resisted hip extension test. That means if you are asking the patient to extend the hip in the prone position, and if we are pressing pressure and putting the resistance in the hip extension, then if there is any pain, which indicates the ischial bursitis. As we discussed, if you can remember, that the hip extensor muscles are the hamstring muscles as well as the gluteus muscles. So hamstring muscles, so that is very important. So if there is an ischial bursitis, so that pain might be demonstrated, that might be reproduced. Then is your resisted hip abduction test. That means you are asking the patient to abduct in the lateral positions and you are putting resistance there. So in here, the gluteus muscles, if you can remember, the gluteus medius, the gluteus, the other gluteus muscles are important hip abductor apart from your tensor fasciculata. So these gluteus muscles, where it is attached into the gluteus medius and minimus, is more important. They are attached in the ischial tuberosity. So in the gluteal bursitis or in please mute yourself, please, or otherwise let me mute you all. Okay, so the resisted hip abduction. So if you can remember the hip abductor muscles, so very important is your gluteus medius. Apart from that, gluteus minimus also, they are inserted into the greater trochanter, and there are bursa there, the trochanteric bursa as well as the gluteus medius bursa. So if there is trochanteric bursitis or if the tendinopathies of the gluteus medius or minimus, then this resisted hip abduction test will be positive. So patient will be feeling pain there. Then your resisted hip abduction release test. So what we are doing here, we are resisting this, then suddenly you are releasing it. So again, this can be because of the trochanteric bursitis. Then is your resisted hip adduction test. So resisted hip adduction test means you are asking the patient to adduct it and you are putting resistance, not allowing to adduct. So here, if you are remembering who are the adductors, so we are having all the adductor muscles. Apart from that, the iliopsoas muscles are also your important, the hip flexors as well as the adductors. So if the patient is feeling exactly the pain where the patient is feeling, if the patient is feeling pain in the anterior groin, so it can be the iliopsoas bursitis. If you can remember, we are having the one bursa under the iliopsoas muscles. So this bursitis, but again, you have to confirm it by the local elicitation of the pain. So if you are having the pain during this test over the symphysis pubis where the adductor muscles are getting inserted, then it will be the adductor tendinopathy is the cause. But if you are feeling the pain in the anterior groin, anterior hip, then the possibility of the iliopsoas bursitis. So during all these tests, exactly where the patient is feeling pain, that is also very important to understand what might be the possible pathology. So this is the the algorithm. So if you have this, all these clinical tests are not at all complicated tests, so I'm not demonstrating over the the volunteers. So now, if you are having any questions regarding your HEAP evaluation, please ask me. So you have to remember the muscles of anterior hip. First of all, we have to remember the causes: anterior hip pain, medial hip pain, lateral hip pain, posterior hip pain. And we have to remember the posterior hip pain, very common pathology is your lumbosacral pathology. So lumbosacral pathology is referred pain is your posterior hip area, buttock and posterior hip area. You have to remember again the causes: anterior, lateral, medial. Then you have to remember the different, hip flexors, hip adductors, hip abductors, hip external rotators, the hip abductors, and also the nerve supply of those, the flexor, extensor, all those muscles. And we have to remember some of the special clinical tests, and then we have to evaluate. But again, as I told you earlier, many times the investigations are not enough. Clinical examination is not enough. We can put local anesthetic and we can see the difference, and that is how we can make a confirmation about the source or origin of the pain.
Sir, I have
Okay,
a doubt.
so please.
Sir,
Yes.
I have a doubt regarding the Trendelenburg test.
Lot of sounds are coming, please.
Hello.
Okay, I'm muting all. You unmute yourself and ask me the question again.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt, some doubt regarding Trendelenburg test.
Yes.
The patient should be stand on the normal leg or affected leg?
Patient should be standing on the affected leg.
Okay, because there is
And
a
lifting the normal leg. If the normal leg is lifted, normally what happens? The other side, the abnormal side, they contract, abductor contract, and keep the pelvis in the horizontal position. But if the patient abnormal side, if the abductor of the hip is weak, or if the abductors of the hip are weak, they will not be able to contract nicely to keep the pelvis in the horizontal position. So the opposite side, that means normal side hip, will be falling down, sagging down. So this is your Trendelenburg test and Trendelenburg gait. Trendelenburg gait and Trendelenburg gait is similar, because when you are walking, so we are lifting one leg. So as soon as we are lifting the normal leg, so that normal side will be falling down. You're lifting the normal leg, and normal leg will be falling down. You have to stand on the abnormal leg.
Okay,
is it clear?
Because in book there is a written that patient should stand on the unaffected leg.
Okay. I already mentioned some of the in some areas of the book there are certain
that's why
some mistakes are there. So please have you understood it now? You have to stand on the abnormal leg. You have to lift the normal leg. There are some typos are there in the book. You are going to correct it. So you have to lift the normal leg, and if you are lifting the normal leg, the normal side will be falling down. The normal side pelvis will be falling down. Why? Because abnormal side abductors cannot contract. So the normal side pelvis will be falling down. So this is your Trendelenburg test and Trendelenburg gait.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, may I ask a question? I could not understand. Yes. I could not understand that extracapsular, intracapsular thing. I have heard it for the first time, so I couldn't understand.
Snapping hip.
Yes. I think yes. Yes.
Okay. So snapping hip means snapping hip impingement and snapping hip is similar. Impingement means your movement is completely restricted. You cannot have the full range of movement. That is your impingement. And impingement is basically the not fitting. The ball and socket is not fitting nicely. That is your impingement. But snapping is there is some obstruction, but still with force you can do the movement. And during that movement there will be pain and snapping sound. Okay, clear? So now the definition is clear. Definition is you are not having the full impingement. You are having some obstruction, but you can overcome that obstruction and you can still do the complete movement. And during that complete movement, there will be snapping sound. So now this obstruction and snapping sound can be because of the intra-articular pathology or can be because of the extra-articular pathology. If it is because of the intra-articular pathology, then it is called intra-articular snapping hip. So what are these intra-articular pathologies? It can be the similar, means some abnormality in the size or shape so that it is doing, but complete impingement is not there. Still full range of movement is possible with some effort. Or labral tear or some other intra-articular. So this is your intra-articular hip snapping syndrome. And extra-articular joint is normal. So pathology is outside the joint. Outside the joint means mostly it is the bone and the tendons. So it can be your external. External means outside, means lateral side of the hip. And internal means medial side of the hip. So medial side of the hip, one of the very important muscles is your iliopsoas muscles together. So these iliopsoas muscles, when you are flexing and extending the hip, these iliopsoas muscles actually gliding over this bony, the margin. So if there is a tendinopathy, if there is a shortening of these tendons, or if there is some, bony spars or something like that, it glides over this, the pelvis, and that causes a snapping. That is called internal snapping hip. So internal snapping hip, most common reason is your iliopsoas tendinopathies. Okay. And now the external snapping hip means when you are flexing again, your tensor fascia lata and the iliopsoas band is coming anterior to the ischial tuberosity. And when you are extending the hip, it goes posterior to the ischial tuberosity. Sorry. So means when you are flexing, your tensor fascia lata and the iliotibial band is coming anterior to the greater trochanter. And when you are extending, this iliotibial band and the tensor fascia lata muscle is going posterior to the greater trochanter. Understand? So now if there is a tendinopathy or your iliotibial band syndrome, if there is a contraction and shortening, what will happen? It will be gliding and slipping over the greater trochanter. So that will be causing some temporary obstruction and snapping sound and pain. So that is called external snapping hip. Is it clear now?
Sir, but iliotibial band starts, midway in the thigh, because
Right.
the tensor fascia
Iliotibial band and tensor fascia lata works together.
Yes, iliotibial.
If there is iliotibial band syndrome, then also there is a possibility of your external snapping hip. But mostly it is the tensor fascia lata and the other muscles which are actually inserting into the
iliotibial band.
So they actually work together.
Okay, sir, with regard to iliotibial tendinopathy, see, there is one bursa below the iliopsoas muscle. You just mentioned it.
Right.
So it can be the bursitis of that as well.
Yes, that is also a cause of the internal snapping hip. That also can be a cause of the internal. So I told you the commonest one, but there are few others.
Okay.
Apart from the iliopsoas muscles, the other internal structures like the hip adductors can also be a cause of your internal snapping hip. But the commonest reason is your iliopsoas muscle.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir. I got it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody?
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes.
Sir, you told labral tear may be diagnosed with ultrasound. Any other investigations for diagnosing labral tear?
Again, the MRI is the best diagnostics because you can see only the anterior part of the labrum, not the whole labrum. So means final best diagnosis is the MRI.
Okay, sir.
Okay, but X-ray cannot make a diagnosis.
Okay,
CT scan
sir,
also give some idea, but again, CT scan is also not the investigation of the choice for the labral tear. Investigation choice of the labral tear is your MRI.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
But again, USG is very important, particularly to identify the the hip effusion, hip pathology, because hip is covered by a lot of muscles. So hip effusion, it's not like knee effusion, ankle effusion. You can easily diagnose it clinically, but the hip effusion, can be very nicely understood by the ultrasonography. Any other questions? Mostly we are concentrating on the clinical test. The different, if you're remembering, remember not just the hip or ankle, whatever you have covered today. If you're remembering everywhere, first you need to know the you can go ahead with your clinical test and you can have the diagnosis. Okay, so next Sunday we'll be having the very important. I'll be discussing in detail about the sympathetic nervous system, in detail sympathetic nervous system, and then I'll be talking about the visceral pain, because the visceral pain is by the sympathetic nerves. So details of the sympathetic nerve I'll be discussing, and I might be taking half of the time for discussing the sympathetic nerve itself, and then I'll be discussing about the visceral pain. You have to remember, both for the thoracic visceral pain and the abdominal visceral pain, again, there should be, mostly for the pain management, and the abdominal or thoracic wall pain is our domain, but the abdominal pathology or the thoracic pathology, they must be dealt with the either cardiologist or pulmonologist or gastroenterologist. Those are not the area of the pain physicians. The pain physicians are involved there only when they are referred to manage the pain. Suppose somebody is having the CA pancreas or chronic pancreatitis, that time only your role. But to understand all this kind of pain, you must be understanding very nicely about the sympathetic nerves. So next day I'll be discussing sympathetic nerve in detail, and then I'll be talking about that. And then next Sunday we'll be having the evaluation. The evaluation will be done by the Kahoot. So all of you should be having the Kahoot, and then the last Sunday of this month we'll be having the overview of the whole of the clinical evaluation part. That will be on 27th of December. And very important part is again the next Saturday. Already yesterday announced, next Saturday we are having one important class on chronic pelvic pain. That will be discussed by Dr. Basabjit from Ireland. So we'll be discussing about the chronic pelvic pain. And then third Saturday we are having the quiz competition. So all of you must be joining there. It will be very interesting. So it's very funny, and you must be enjoying it. So the other, some of the schedules there apart from the other. And we are starting also the 3 months fellowship. Those who are enrolled for the 1 year fellowship, they are free to join the 3 months fellowship as well. So we are starting this from 18th Friday, 18th December. So 3 months fellows should join the 3 months fellowship, online fellowship also. So they are free to join there. Okay, so good night everyone. Go on reading, and you're both the 1 year fellows, both for the July batch and the October batch, you are having the evaluation, and get ready for that. Go through the syllabus and just read nicely. I'll be taking one doubt clearing class for both of you, both for the July batch as well as for the January batch. I'll be taking doubt clearing class for you, and if you are having any doubts whenever you are reading, you can ask me questions that time. Okay, so good night everybody.
Good night, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.